Hey everyone, Dr. Shook here. I hope you're doing well today. In today's video, what I want to talk to you about is a really important topic, and that is how leaky gut can actually impact your thyroid and cause hypothyroidism. It can also create problems with your metabolism. And when I talk about metabolism, I'm not just talking about weight loss. I'm also just, what I'm really focusing on here and what I really mean by increased metabolism is improve cellular energy production, because every single cell in the body requires thyroid hormone to produce energy and carry out its basic physiological process. So when we talk about metabolism, we're talking about normal, ideal metabolism and energy production of every cell. So if it's a liver cell and it's making enzymes that assist with detoxification, we want to make sure that that cell can produce energy to carry out its detoxification enzyme production. Okay, if it's a bone cell and it's making bone, we want to make sure it can carry out its job of producing that bone, and it can't do that if it doesn't have good metabolism. Okay, so just that is really what I'm talking about when I'm talking about metabolism. This is, you know, it's the same thing if we're talking about energy burning. Like if you're interested in weight loss, then this is you know, also it's the same thing. That's the main thing you need to understand, is that energy production of the cell is the same thing. If we improve energy production of the cells of your body, you increase metabolic rate and you can lose weight. If that's one of the main things that you want to know about, this will directly apply to that. Okay? So the first thing that we need to understand, I want you to understand, is how things work and then how they break. Okay? So we're going to talk about the thyroid and how a problem called leaky gut or intestinal permeability can break thyroid conversion. Okay, this is important. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. I'm getting ready to cover it. Okay, so the first thing you need to understand is that every single cell in the body requires thyroid hormone to produce energy. If you don't have proper thyroid hormone production, if you don't have proper sensitivity to the thyroid hormone, your cells aren't sensitive to it, then they can't use it. If your body can't transport it efficiently, and there's ways that can break down, then you're not going to get the thyroid hormone where it needs to go. And if you don't have proper detoxification of the hormone or breakdown and elimination, that can also create some problems. So when we're talking, anytime I talk to you about a hormonal related issue, and the thyroid in particular, you're going to see that I'm going to put up here PTSD: production, transportation, sensitivity at the cell, and detoxification. Every hormone in the body, this is the physiological process. Most of the time when people go to their doctor, the only thing that's considered is production. Okay, so do you have enough of the hormone or do you have too much? And the reason that they only focus on production and that they ignore transportation, sensitivity, and detoxification, which by the way can impact all this and create all the symptoms that you have, the reason they focus here is because their toolbox has tools that allow them to increase the levels or decrease the levels. Okay, so it's important to understand this piece. Now, whenever I'm talking about this, I'm going to circle what we're focusing on, because my videos, I'll cover transportation problems, sensitivity problems, detoxification problems. So production problems. This is a production-based issue that we're talking about here. Okay, so thyroid makes 93% T4, 7% T3. Let's say that this production, this output from the gland, is perfectly normal. So your TSH and all your thyroid markers might look fine. And keep this in mind, if you're someone that doesn't have normal TSH and you don't have normal thyroid, what we're going to talk about can still break. You can have more than one problem. And unfortunately, no one has just one problem. That's what we see time and time again, is that people have so many problems that are overlapping and contributing to the symptoms that they're having. You have to kind of understand, you know, these problems and the way that the body can break down so that you can help someone, you know, peel those layers and get them as healthy as possible. So the thyroid makes these hormones. Now T4 is primarily inactive, and most of the hormone that's made is this inactive form of T4. It has to be converted into T3, and you can see your gland only produces 7% of the direct output is T3. So your body will use this T4 and it will convert it into T3, and to do that it uses an enzyme called 5' deiodinase. Okay, 5' deiodinase. Now this enzyme allows the T4 to convert to T3, but it can be, its production can be impaired, and leaky gut can break this process, can really impair it and create some major issues with it. So before we talk about leaky gut and how it breaks it, I just want to let you know that leaky gut is a process. If you look in the scientific literature, you can look up intestinal permeability. And it's basically where the lining of the intestinal tract becomes permeable or leaky. The spaces between the cells open up, and it lets partially digested food peptides and inflammatory byproducts of bacterial metabolism into the bloodstream. Those things are called lipopolysaccharides. What they do is they get into the bloodstream, they trigger an inflammatory response, and it wreaks a lot of havoc on the body. All right, so leaky gut is also, it's one of the ways that we believe autoimmunity can begin, so that, your body can start attacking itself. And that's relevant to this discussion because most people that have thyroid problems, if you're hypothyroid, you have a 9 out of 10 chance of having the low thyroid problem because of autoimmunity. So it's really important. So leaky gut breaks conversion. So that process of the gut breaking down, it creates this whole cascade of problems within the body. So some of the things that leaky gut will do is it will drive inflammation up. Okay, when inflammation's high, a lot of hormonal problems occur. Okay, so your stress hormones go up. That can affect conversion. Inflammatory load, higher inflammatory levels, it can have an impact on the brain. It can have an impact on signaling of some of your brain-based structures that are involved in thyroid hormone production and other hormones. I mean, a lot of things go wrong with inflammation. Like I have lots and lots of videos on inflammation and how it breaks this process. But let's keep the 30,000 foot overview so you can get the idea, okay? So leaky gut breaks conversion. It can drive up inflammation. It sets the stage for poor absorption. So typically with leaky gut, there's inflammation. There tends to be, it leads to or it's accompanied by gut dysbiosis. And all that means is this. It means bacterial imbalance. It means you have an overgrowth of some of the bacteria in the gut that we don't want to have in such a high quantity, and you have an undergrowth of the ones that we do want. So there's this imbalance. Maybe you even have some fungal overgrowth, some candida, or some other issues in the gut. These are all things that really can, like I said, lead to or it's accompanied by leaky gut. And this creates a lot of problems for people because it impairs, absorption and leads to a lot of the issues that will create problems with the production of 5'-deiodinase, this enzyme that's required for T4 to T3 conversion. So leaky gut creates all these problems that will decrease the amount and the efficiency of this enzyme. So you just don't convert T4 to T3 as well as you should. And so therefore you might end up with lower T3 and higher T4. And remember, T3 is the active form, so if it's lower, you don't get that stimulation and you can still feel bad even though TSH and T4 could be normal, okay? And T3 actually may be within the lab range, but the fact is that we want to see T3, more in an ideal range. I mean, there's a lab high and lab low. So I can just tell you, if we're talking about numbers in isolation, which I really don't like to do because remember, production, transportation, sensitivity, and detoxification. A lot of things break these other processes down, and looking at the number and the quantity, just the production by itself, is insufficient. You've got to have the whole picture. But if we're talking about just in pure isolation, I'll tell you that T3, what I typically see is T3 at about 130 is usually about ideal, and then free T3 at about 3.5 is usually ideal for most of the people that I've worked with. And that may be because we improve transportation, sensitivity, and detoxification and allow their body to be sensitive to the hormone, right? So typically you'll see T3 that's at lower levels than this, though, if this process is occurring and happening. And yes, we can evaluate and measure leaky gut. We can look at the GI tract with stool panels and a lot of different tests, but that's really outside of the general concept that I want to convey here. Now, what can you do about this issue if this is happening to you? Well, first of all, you've got to make sure that the food and what you're consuming is the right diet. I can tell you that if you're looking at trying, a trial and error based diet, you're looking at a diet that's helped a lot of people with gut issues, thyroid autoimmunity, then you might want to try an autoimmune paleo diet. AIP diets tend to work pretty well. They're no grain, no nuts, no seeds, no nightshades. They're not low carb, but they can be low carb if you wanted to do that. But they tend to be very, very good diets. It's autoimmune paleo. It's something that you might want to consider. You've got to improve bacterial balance, because typically with leaky gut, there's this mess, right, that we're dealing with. And typically you'll see that the gut is out of balance with the bacteria. Maybe there's fungal overgrowth. And really, depending on what's going on, you want to take an approach that's specific to your needs. If we're just saying, trial and error, completely, generally speaking, maybe, changing food alone and eating the right foods will improve bacterial balance. But, using probiotics, good bacteria, might be helpful. I don't typically use probiotics because I tend to gather a lot of data on people and change their diet, which changes their gut bacteria pretty quickly. I will use probiotics if we do an antimicrobial protocol to get rid of fungal infections, to get rid of bacteria overgrowth. Then I may use probiotics after that protocol to help re-inoculate the gut. But you've got to improve bacterial balance. So, if nothing else, don't worry about a supplement, just change diet. And if you're getting a diverse amount of plant fibers into your diet, your gut health and your bacteria is going to improve quite a bit, okay? The third thing you can do is improve absorption. Improve absorption. Now, there are a few ways you can do that. So, decreasing inflammation, healing leaky gut, all these things kind of, it's the chicken or the egg. Well, what comes first, right? And so the main thing that you got to understand here is that improve absorption. You can use supplemental enzymes, so digestive enzymes, to help you break down food so that, and this is not forever, like I don't recommend any of these things forever, but this might be something for you to consider. Digestive enzymes to help break down food so that you can better absorb it, but also it decreases your reactivity to the food if you're having food reactions. Maybe consider glutamine. Glutamine is an amino acid that the lining of the gut uses to heal, and it can be very helpful. And then zinc carnosine is a form of zinc that can actually kind of coat the intestinal wall, and it tends to really help with keeping things from leaking into the bloodstream and assisting with that healing process. So these are things that you might want to consider in combination with diet and focusing on the bacteria temporarily if you're doing a trial and error based approach. But if you want to figure out what the actual problem is so that you can put together a very specific strategy. Because if you don't do that, then what you end up doing is spending a lot of time and money on things that aren't going to work for you, right? Or it works a little bit and then it comes back and you've just wasted a ton of time and likely money. So in an ideal situation, you get some help figuring this out. And if you need help, if you're not sure of where to go or who to talk to, I work with people around the world, across the United States as well, and we work with them via distance consulting, and we help them. We look at their health history in great detail. We'll typically spend about an hour discussing with them everything that's going on with their health, their past diagnoses, everything they've had done, and we spend a lot of time trying to figure out everything that we can about the potential drivers of the problems that you're having. Then once we have that information and we've reviewed it very thoroughly together, then what I'll do is I'll typically make recommendations for advanced diagnostic testing to confirm what I think is happening. Right? So we help people all over the world. We work with people in a number of different countries and all across the United States to do this. And we do it via distance consulting, so phone. Sometimes we'll use FaceTime or Skype, or there's other ways that we can do that via Zoom. There's several different ways that we will conduct these appointments. But we work with people. If you need help, just let us know, and we'll be glad to try and help you, get another perspective, if nothing else. We try to really work with you and complement what your doctor's already doing, give you another set of eyes and direction on what to consider doing here, and ultimately give you some ideas on what might be driving and causing this in the first place. If you're interested in that, just go to new.thyroidconsult.com. That's new.thyroidconsult.com, and you can learn more. I take a three-step approach. A three-step approach that's science-based. It is a detect, remove, and repair. I use this framework to help people figure out what's going on. Detect the problems, very in-depth health history, look at everything that's been done up to this point, and then recommend advanced diagnostic testing to further confirm my suspicions based on our history so that we can get the best starting point possible. Then what we do is we put together a specific strategy that's unique to you and the problems that we find to work on removing the issues and the problems that have been discovered. Once we've removed those problems, we focus on repairing and optimizing your health and physiology. So detect, remove, repair. It's very predictable. It allows us to take a science-based approach. We use repeatable scientific tests that allow us to very thoroughly dig and try to help you figure this thing out. But I hope this has helped you guys out. I appreciate you spending this time with me. If you have any questions about anything, please don't hesitate to post questions, comments for us here. We have hundreds of videos to help you help yourself. I'm very much a patient advocate, and I encourage people to help themselves, to do everything that you can to be your own advocate. So please do learn, go to watch our videos, learn everything that you can, and just let me know if you have any questions or